Imagine this. It's November 2025. After years of an absolutely brutal war, a new peace proposal suddenly appears on the world stage. But here's the catch. It could force Ukraine into a truly impossible corner. So let's get into it and unpack what's really going on here. And wow, this quote from President Zelensky, it really just gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it? He's talking about immense pressure, not from an enemy, but from a key ally, the United States. This puts Ukraine at what has to be one of the most dangerous moments in its entire history. So, what is this thing that's causing so much anxiety? Well, it's a new 28-point peace plan, and it's being pushed by the US administration. It's kind of popped up out of nowhere, probably because the political winds in Washington have shifted. And it's sending these shockwaves through Kyiv and all across Europe. Okay, so let's look at what's actually in this plan, because the demands on Ukraine are just massive. First, it says Ukraine has to cede territory, basically let the Donbas region become Russian. Then it calls for permanent limits on the size of its military. On top of that, Ukraine would have to change its own constitution to promise it will never, ever join NATO. And to cap it all off, hold new elections in just 100 days. And while Kyiv is reeling from this, what's the view from Moscow? Well, it's the complete opposite. Vladimir Putin says this plan could be the basis for a final peaceful settlement. You hear that, right? It tells you that from Russia's point of view, this deal is a great starting point for ending the war on its terms. And right there, you have a massive diplomatic showdown. But you might be wondering, how on earth did we get to this point? It's so important to remember that this isn't the first time they've tried to talk peace. Actually, the road to 2025 is kind of littered with the wreckage of past attempts, and each failure has shaped where we are today. Let's do a quick recap. Literally days after the 2022 invasion, talks started in Belarus. They went nowhere. Then you had high-level meetings in Turkey, which led to something called the Istanbul Communique. That's where the idea of Ukrainian neutrality for security guarantees was really on the table. But those talks completely fell apart, especially after the world saw the horrific atrocities in Bucha. The disagreements were just too deep to overcome. And really, what it all boils down to, both then and now, is that Russia and Ukraine have two totally different, completely incompatible ideas of what peace even means. The gap between what each side wants is just, well, it's enormous. And this slide just lays it out so clearly. On one side, you have Russia's demands, recognize all the land they've taken, ban Ukraine from NATO forever, and lift all sanctions. On the other side, Ukraine's 10-point plan is basically the polar opposite. Russia out of all Ukrainian land, back to the 1991 borders, war crimes trials, and real security guarantees. They're just not even starting in the same universe. Now, here's something absolutely crucial to remember. None of this is happening in a vacuum. These diplomatic chess moves are playing out against the backdrop of some of the most ferocious fighting we've seen, especially out in the East. Look at this number from the Institute for the Study of War, 150,000. That's not just a statistic. That's the number of Russian troops massed for a single offensive toward a town called Pokrovsk. And why there? Because Pokrovsk is a critical lifeline, a major logistics hub for Ukrainian forces in the Donbas. If Russia takes it, they could choke off supply lines and maybe even collapse the front. So you can see how this intense military pressure adds a ton of weight to Russia's demands at the negotiating table. And all of that, it brings us right back to this very moment. You've got Ukrainian, American, and European officials all heading to Switzerland for a meeting. And there's only one thing they're there to talk about: this 28-point plan. The entire future of Ukrainian sovereignty is hanging in the balance. So, what are independent experts saying? Are they buying this as a real path to peace? Not so much. Orisia Lusevich from Chatham House is incredibly blunt about it. She says the plan aligns so perfectly with Russia's goals that it looks like it was written in Moscow, not Washington. And if you thought that was a tough take, her colleague Keir Giles goes even further. He's not mincing words at all. He says this isn't a negotiation. It's the United States basically acting as a delivery service, handing Russia's surrender demands over to Ukraine. That is just a brutal, brutal assessment of the situation. So we're left with this huge, deeply unsettling question. Is this 28-point plan a genuine, even if it's painful, path to a lasting peace? Or, as some of these experts clearly fear, is it just a trap? A deal that would leave Ukraine weakened, disarmed, and vulnerable for the fighting to start up again whenever Moscow decides the time is right. The answer to that question will define the future of Ukraine and maybe all of European security for decades to come.
Subscribe now for more conflict breakdowns.